Hey, Warrior Saints, Father Chris here. Today, we're going to talk about an epidemic. An epidemic, which I think it's pervasive all over the place, and it is commitment, or lack thereof. See, commitment means that if I agree to do something, if I subscribe to something and say that I am going to, the commitment is following through all the way to the end with that responsibility, right? I mean, that's what it means to commit. Giving your word to do something and then sticking with it, following through, going all the way to the end to make sure you honor the word that you spoke. I wonder sometimes, I'm stressing out a little bit about it, and I'm confessing that to you all, because I don't know that people know that. I'm not even saying that people are just blowing off commitments. I actually wonder if people really even know that if we give our word, we're supposed to honor it. I'm gonna tell you a true story. And forgive me today, you guys are gonna have to hear me and indulge me as I'm confessing my sins to you. My birthday is on September 13. And September 13 is also the day in the Orthodox Church when we celebrate liturgy for the Feast of the Cross, of Christ's Cross. And so every September 13, here we go, all I want to do is to sit on my couch and drink beer and hang out with my wife and kids. To me, that's how I want to spend my birthday. Maybe play golf in the morning, relax in the afternoon. I don't want to work. I work every other day of the year. Let me have my day, right? But that's the day that the church celebrates the cross of Christ. And I made a commitment, however long ago, to become an Orthodox priest and to serve God and to serve His church. And so what that means is, I don't always get to play golf. I don't get to sit on the couch and drink beer, and I don't always get to hang out with my family until the day's totally done. Because as the parish priest at St. George in Phoenix, I have to serve liturgy. Now, don't get me wrong, obviously I love serving liturgy. I mean, it's great, I love doing it. But it was a commitment that I made, and it means that I have to be crucifixional in my own wants, my own interests, my own desires in order to accomplish or to fulfill the commitment that I made. And I made that 20 plus years ago when I went into seminary and decided to follow the ordained priesthood. But I made the commitment and I stick to it. Today, it's not always like that. Today, people are comfortable to make a commitment and then renege on it. One of the commitments that we all make when you bring your kid to be baptized is that I'm going to bring that kid to church, right? I'm going to bring that kid to church, and I'm going to raise that kid in the life of the church, and hopefully they'll be, a good, solid warrior saint. And then soccer games get in the way, and volleyball games get in the way, and other Olympic type sports get in the way, and school projects get in the way. And we commit to bringing our kids to church because we want them to be raised in the life of the church and we want them to become warrior saints. But then baseball games happen on Sundays, and soccer games, and football games, and basketball games, and concerts, and volleyball games, and other sporting events, and other school activities. And the next thing you know, we've given our commitment to God for this child, that he or she will be raised in the church, and other things get in the way and we break our commitment. It's a really funny thing. That gives rise to something even a little smaller and a little lighter. When you commit to do something, when you commit to be in a position of leadership in an organization, in school, or at home, or at church, or whatever it may be, if you make that commitment, things can't get in the way of that responsibility. If you take a job, and a boss is going to hire you and pay you money and pay your benefits so that you work at this position, work in this company, you have to be committed to that. I mean, it's expected that you honor the responsibilities of the commitment that you made. Another issue that we have with commitment is making plans with someone and then reneging on them because, in some sense, a better offer came up. Something more exciting came up. Something more fun even came up. I'm going to tell you a true story. There's a person who reached out to me, and we were communicating via email, and the person, and I agreed to have a meeting on Friday. And we set a time and we planned it on Friday. Now I get Friday's the end of the week and there's a weekend and people go out and all that kind of stuff, but the person committed and I put it in my calendar 2 days later, the person wrote back and said, hey, Father, I mean, listen, I'm going to give you verbatim what they said. There was no like mincing words in this whole thing. The email came back 2 days later, hey, Father, something else came up and I can't meet Friday. Does Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday work? No, it doesn't work. I'm busy Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, right? I gave you Friday and you committed to Friday. I think you should have honored that word. Now, I'll give it a shot later. Maybe someday I'll be able to reschedule with that person. But quite candidly, I mean, I realized that the time that they wanted to spend with me is not really of any value to them. It didn't mean anything to them. Otherwise, why commit and then pull it back? Just don't commit. Let me have my Friday night, right? You know, and so when we make commitments, we are expected to honor them. As we hear in the Epistle of James, let your yes be yes and your no be no. If you can't do it, don't say yes. If you think you want to do it, then and you do say yes, honor it all the way to the end. I often think about it like imagine Jesus Christ if he decided not to follow through with his commitment, right? Like, I mean, you know, I don't want to be voodoo about it, but let's just imagine that as Christ was about to go to his death, he didn't want to do it. I mean, read the passages from the Garden of Gethsemane. He says, Father, let this cup pass from me, right? Nevertheless, not as I will, but you will. He was willing to submit to the commitment that he made to God the Father to save mankind, right? Because you know what, he could have snapped his fingers, send 1 billion angels, let's conquer the Romans and I'll be an earthly king. I mean, he could have done it, but he committed to the salvation of mankind. And he went all the way, even to the end, to death and to death on a cross, right? I mean, that's commitment. That's following it all the way to the end, right? So, it's important. Here's the real message. We have to understand as warrior saints that if you say yes, you mean yes. And if you say no, you mean no. Whatever you agree to, whatever you don't agree to, you are committed to that. And I think it's important that we honor that word. I think it's important that we understand a commitment is something we don't break. I don't care if something more exciting or something better comes up. It's a word we've given. It's a commitment and we honor it. And the epidemic is, I don't think people know that. I don't think people are teaching that. I think our kids don't know it because their parents haven't taught them, right? I'm not letting our kids off the hook, to be sure, but I blame more the parents, right? Because you let your kids get away with it. I mean, like, it blows my mind. It blows my mind when you see when parents let their kids go to sporting events on Sundays. When parents let their kids go to school events on Sundays so that they miss church. Or even worse, when their parents just say, okay, we can have a lazy day. I mean, once a year, okay, fine, but all the time? I mean, what have you done when you do that? You show your kids a bunch of things. One, that commitment doesn't mean anything. Number two, that the secular world has conquered the church, has conquered God, and that God is of secondary importance. So all of this frustration it's pouring out of me because I want us warrior saints to be committed. Say it and do it, right? Look, I've made mistakes too. I've committed to things and flaked. I get it. We all do it. I am no less guilty, but I'm fighting, man. I'm fighting hard to make sure that my word is good. My word is what it says it is. Here's a great example. When you are going to accept a position in an organization, whatever it may be, I don't care what the organization is and I don't care what the position is. Look at the calendar. Look ahead at the calendar before you commit. And if there are dates in January and February and March and April, and you find that one of those dates down the road conflicts with something else on your calendar, you have a moment where you have to decide, which am I going to commit to? Can you travel and still honor the commitment? If you can't do both, then you have to say yes to one and no to the other. And I would rather you say no to committing to the organization so that you don't commit to something that you blow off, than to commit to it and do 99% of the other things and miss one because you weren't solid in your commitment. So you got to look ahead, you got to plan ahead, you got to think, right? I mean, it's pretty simple. And so it means you've got to be fierce, you've got to be a warrior saint. Man, you got to fight. And let me tell you, like every year on September 13th, I want to drink beer and sit on the couch and hang out with my wife and play with my kids. But you know what? I gave my word to the Lord and to the community of St. George and Phoenix. And so I suck it up and go. Like I said, that sounds terrible. Like, I love serving liturgy. I love the church. I mean, that's why I've given my life to it. But you get my point, right? Go with me there and to realize that even I in my humanity, I want to have those relaxing moments, especially on my day. but I committed, right? But I committed. All of that to be said, warrior saints, I want you to commit. I want you to commit to as many things as you are able to commit to, and as many things as you are able to commit to that are healthy in your life. I don't want you to commit to 10 things, maybe 2 things or 3 things, but whatever it is you commit to, whatever the things that you spend your time doing, if you say yes and do it, all right? All of my rant ends with this. And here's the point on the way of the warrior saint that I think is of import that we understand. As we try to move from mediocre to great, it requires commitment. It requires commitment. And so when you commit, when you make your yes a yes, and you stick with it, you find that things start to work. You find that you know you've done the right thing. You find that you've become just a little bit better than you were yesterday. And you find that somewhere in the deepest recess of your gut and in your core, you know you're on the way of the warrior saint. Until next time, warrior saints, keep walking on the way of the warrior saint. See you soon.